It's National Poetry Day. The theme is vision. See like a poet. I'd love to know how you see like a poet. Anything that pops into your head. I know the bulk of you are all poets here today, so please do feel free to share your thoughts. I do hope the sound isn't too horrendous. I am going to be speaking to Daljit Nagra later. Daljit also asked if he could hear from some regional poets. So we're very lucky. We do have Michelle Hubbard, all the way from Nottingham, I hope, although I can't see her at the moment. We have Sunita Thind, who, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Sunita, who is a poet from Derby who has 2 collections out at the moment, not 1 but 2. She's going to wave them at me now, I can tell. Very good to have you here. We also have Kal, who's another Derby poet, Singh Dhindsa, born and bred in Derby, so that's exciting to have him here. So I think, without further ado, what I will do is I'll mute me when I'm asking you lovely poets to perform, and then maybe this crackly naggliness may go away. We'll see, we will see. Sunita, I think you've got a poem for us. Are you ready, my lovely?
There she is. Hello, my name is Sunita Thind. I am a Derby / Bedford poet. I've got a new book out called, and you can follow me on Sunita Thind writer at Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Sunita Thind. I'm actually going through chemotherapy at the moment for ovarian cancer recurrence, so that's why I'm wearing this. So I'm just going to get into my poetry. It's basically poetry from a South Asian female perspective, living between 3 different cultures: Malaysian, British and Punjabi. So I'll get right into it. Brown on the outside, brown on the outside, white on the inside. Susli Gal, said the coconut girl. Jewel doll in a salwar kameez. Gemstone bindiya targeted on forehead. Gidda, said the coconut girl. All cinnamon legs in a profusion of glittered miniskirts. Gin chaser, whiskey sour, chip butty, fondled by the Gordar boyfriend. Mera tika, I am good, said the coconut girl. Spangled headscarf gagging her. You are so dark, La. You must lose weight, La. Tusi gali, tusi mutti. Did you see her niece? She got into medicine. Chirped the banshees, the auntie G's, the mummy G's, the duddy Mars, the nunny Mars. Mera naam. My name is, said the coconut girl. Bejeweled lengar, crystallized, hot pink and burnt gold. Diamonds in the hair, the perfect bride. Nahi, nahi, said the coconut girl. No. MAC cosmetic facade, rhinestone embellished hot pants, holographic stiletto boots, whiskey breath. Her dad saw her with that white guy. Mute was the coconut girl, manacled to her juriya, her bangles, telephoned to her tika, feasting on a banquet of curries. A Punjabi paradox was our sad little coconut girl. Am I okay to read one more poem? This one is called Punjabi School. I recall the bearded brute with the citrus bright turban, by day an ice cream man, Mr. C by night a bone-chilling Punjabi educator, belching and perverted with an ignorant kind of nature, knuckles wrapped across by a wooden school ruler, backhander stinging, squirming after discreet slaps, reciting Punjabi bears, Kirtan Ekumkar Satanam Kartabur Nirpo Nirver. A lineup of terrified, snotty, tear-stained brown faces. That old Mr. C stands over them, twitching with fury, wields his weapon of choice, a wooden ruler of sometimes the plastic meter stick for added effect, saggy belly, curry burps, onion breath, and hairy knuckles. The Punjabi alphabet, the Gurumukhi script, Ura, Era, Iri, Sasa, Haha, Gugga, Gugga. He sweats off his fat Indian gold chain, the ferocity of scribbling, incessant repetition in cheap notebooks with chewed up biros, sucking in multicoloured ink, tongue like a rainbow. I wanted to unbrown myself, the compulsive pleasure of this Indian bully, the violator, the sadist, chanting, reciting from the dog-eared Punjabi language textbook. One kid was dribbling, the turban tormentor notoriously spewing profanity in foreign tongues at befuddled students, incorrect pronunciation and handwriting. Mainly, that was mine.
So, thank you so much. It's very good to be invited over to Derby, and it's great to have Daljit back in Derby. I know that Derby City Council Libraries and Derby Poetry Festival were really keen to get you back again, Daljit, because there's such glowing things they've said about you, and it's a thrill to meet you. Our next poet from Derby is Kalwinder Singh Dhindsa, or Cal, as he said I can call him. Cal, there you are, my lovely. How are you doing?
Hello. So my name's Cal Singh Dhindsa, and I'm looking through the people that are participating today, so I recognise a few. I've met Daljit Nagra before in Derby, and it was wonderful to hear his poems back then, so I look forward to hearing a few more today. So yeah, I'm 40 years old. I've lived in Derby all my life. I've been writing poetry for the last year and a half. I've written 300 poems since I first started, and I'll be reciting 1% of all that today. So I'll be reciting 3 poems. Previous to that, I had written a couple of memoirs in relation to the passing of my father by suicide. So my books are called My Father and the Lost Legend of Pear Tree. And the poems I'm going to recite today are from my collections, the Pear Tree series, Pear Tree Rambler, Pear Tree Rampage, Pear Tree Rampart, and here's a collected edition. So, so I'm going to recite 3 poems today. Now, when Trevor contacted me the other day about this event, he said that the theme of it was vision. So I just want to reflect on what vision means to me, and then I'll go into my poems. Now, to me, the word vision means what you see before you, right? So what you directly see. It also means to me what you see beyond you, so what you are thinking in your mind's eye. So I decided the 3 poems that I picked today were based on this idea of having visions or being visionary. George Bernard Shaw, the famous Irish playwright, once said, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. Others dream things that never were and ask why not." Now, John F. Kennedy also said something similar along these lines. And a great author that I admire, W.P. Kinsella, who wrote Shoeless Joe, that was later turned into The Field of Dreams, also said something similar, that some people see things and ask why. I see things that never were and ask why not. So the 3 poems that I'm going to recite today are, in my opinion, 3 great visionaries, 3 great heroes of mine that I want to share. So the first one is called I'm Possible. So here we go. Born to a Sikh family in 1926, the Morga-born Punjabi physicist, the father of fibre optics, the creator of a glass wire that transports light, a means of transmitting information, an invention transforming life, paving the way for modern telecommunication. A physics genius who achieved the possible, the bending of light, which he was told was impossible. Narinder Singh Kapani, the one who arrived first at the goal to show, the revolutionary Sikh scientist who opened the door for others to follow. So that was my first poem. My second one is again about a visionary lady, not from these parts in Derby or Derbyshire, but her name has a link to this county. So this one's called Derbyshire Way. An English musician with a love for acoustics, a female composer of electronic music. At the BBC Radiophonic Workshop on various machines, she arranged the Doctor Who theme, created and produced entirely by electronic means. A street, blue plaque and posthumous honorary doctorate in her name. An unsung heroine, the city of Coventry acclaim. A perfectionist pioneer who broke uncharted new ground. Delia and Derbyshire, the sculptress of sound. So that's my tribute to Delia Derbyshire, the genius behind the Doctor Who theme. Okay, the last poem is in relation to Derby and one of my great heroes in the city of Derby. But when he did his thing back in the day, he did it in the town of Derby. The poem itself is called Town's End. Unfooled by Chamberlain's appeasement towards Hitler and Germany, Ernest Townsend predicted that all-out war was a certainty. Commissioned by the Home Office to use his skills as an artist, camouflaging Rolls-Royce Merlin engine factories the Nazis would target, to make them appear to be no more a village from the air, keeping thousands of Derby workers safe from Luftwaffe bomber raids and despair. an extremely patriotic man who significantly helped confound Nazi evil. Townsend gave his life in the protection of his town and its people. So that's my 3 poems about vision and visionaries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely love it when there's history in poetry. I know it's great to have the personal in there, but I love the way you weave it in. And that first poem, both my parents were born in 1926, so it had my heart from the start. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I can see that Michelle Hubbard has managed to make her way from Nottingham to us by the skin of her teeth, smiling away. Hi, Michelle. Are you ready? Are you prepared?
Trying to get in.
Welcome to Derby.
Thank you.
Michelle is a poet from Nottingham who has run, we reckon, the longest running spoken word night in the city, which is Blackdrop. There are other nights who have that claim to fame, but I'm going with Michelle. So, Michelle, Mother Hubbard, over to you.
Thank you. I was going to go into the long explanation of why I can't find the poet that's on the theme vision, and other than not long being into work, had to set up a home office, which involved putting work-related things in and moving out the poetry, and now thinking, where was that poetry file amongst all the others? So there's some loose connections here. Happy National Poetry Day to everybody, by the way. Ooh, amazing, good stuff. And thank you for having me here, all those zooming in the back door late. Zooming, wow. Okay, first one's called Great Idea. I have this great idea. If you listen, you will hear. If we stand together as one, united, we'll be so strong. I have this great idea. Come and gather near. If we put God back into our lives, there'd be no place for guns and knives. Look, I've got this great idea. I'm being most sincere. If we pool each available resource, what a mighty force. You see, I have this great idea. It's nothing much to fear, but imagine, if you can, the collective energy of each and every man or woman. I have this great idea. Let me whisper it into your ear. If I believe in you and you believe in me and we believe in each other, what a mighty force that would be. Tell me about your great ideas. Let's meditate together and see what appears. Let go of our hang-ups. Let go of our fears. Let the visions appear. Thank you. That's the first one. I've got to keep my eye on time. That was quicker than I thought, actually. And this one, trying to have a quick squint on the room there and see if I can, on the Zoom room, and of those of you that have got your faces up on there, trying to gather the age range. Well, some of you, I think, will be able to relate to this one. This one's kind of 6 years old now, but at the time when I hit half a century, it was new. Half a century and beyond. This is the stage we celebrate our age from memory to page and back in time again, dancing through decades of what-ifs and missed experiences, the secret smiles, the treasures, the things we did, and the things we got away with, the things we dared to play with. We become labelled like museum items and placed in safe glass cases. We are the case studies, the over 50s, the next care home intakes. Life breaks like bones of a sunshine through faded curtains. Future flights of fancy, uncertain. Heal me of this stigmatization. Our lives can be overstated. We waited for a retirement of fulfillment, but we battled against ailments and institutional ignorance. Don't call me a silver surfer, a boomer, a wrinkly, a little old biddy, an OAP, a drain on society. Do you want me? Do I want you to be forgiven for your ongoing acts of ageism? My age bracket becomes a prison society locks me away in, forgotten. I'm trying to break free. Don't deny me my freedom of expression just because I'm life's middle, nearer to the grave than to the cradle. Don't, please, this doesn't give you permission. There's plenty of time to live life and respond. Half a century and beyond, trail blazing through, even with double vision. That's the second one, peeping at time. Trying to look there and see, you see a lot of people these days. It's fashion, isn't it, to dye the hair even if you're kind of 25. So grey hair doesn't say a lot for age, does it? I'm trying to squint and see if there's any other silver surfers, but of course you could well be 25 and just be very fashionable. See, over 50 is just where it's at. And this one's not related to the theme. Well, I'll read the poem. I won't explain it away. It's called Knocking on the Door for Sugar. I remember once when I was young, we ran out of sugar, so I said to Mum, I'll ask Mrs. next door if we can borrow a cup. She went crazy, shouting, you can't go knocking on people's doors for sugar. It was like some kind of awful crime. I'm not sure if it was asking our neighbours or admitting that we had no sugar that bothered her. The other neighbours on our street would occasionally knock on ours for sugar, and she knew how to give gladly. I've seen my friends knock on their neighbours for sugar, holding out a china teacup with a please attached. Mum drinks her tea without sugar, always. Dad drinks his tea without milk, always. You see, just after the war they had to choose. It was one or the other, never both. But still, they make do to this day. Don't go bothering people. Don't go making a nuisance of yourself. My mum hated people asking for anything, and she's passed that on to me. I often drink mint tea without sugar. Okay, that's that one. And then, final one, just in time. This one's called Uprising. We've got mountains to climb. We, the charred bodies of our children, there where babies cling to mothers, millions of us can't breathe. A small trickle of strong people shall dance and shout and remember. Each for a patch of earth stained the colour of rust from blood of the too many good souls. Their ancient black roots search parched earth shall eventually give birth to fruits. As this sea of insanity drives broken trains into some other kind of night, down chain gang built tracks that aren't going to where we want to be. Strength has all but gone, but we shall not break. This spirit of the moment shall grow wings and fly beyond. The buzzards that are pecking at our eyes, well, they too shall fly. Freedom is a feeling, a vision that will rise like steam from a hot pot of fresh soup, laced with enough Scotch bonnet to blow the lid off any lies. And we keep our hopes alive, because this is a vision that I hold on to. Thank you.
Goodness, talk about dipping our emotions in and out, Michelle. Thank you very much for that. Did you have a poem you'd like to share? Trevor isn't just the man who organises these things. Trevor is a damn fine poet as well.
This is a poem about how a really bad day can turn into a really good day if you've got the vision to recognise it. It's called Roller Coaster Day. The day's layered grime infiltrated and distorted each fibre, chronically obstructed every pore, becoming my bag of stones. Remorselessly, against my will, delivering one near comatose, soiled and twisted shadow, paroled to home. Where? A 1600 revs per minute whirring blurring of bare feet, squashed without thought into school shoes left unstrapped, cannoned a freckle-faced teddy-clutching bundle of jim-jammed energy into my arms. And there I stood, pardoned and deep-cleaned, with just one kiss.
Thank you so much. I'm going to fill the remaining gap in true poetry form, which is a sonnet, a classic sonnet, and it's called the Bee Sonnet. I dream each night of busy dancing bees, jiving with numbers in my weary head. I try to hear the ocean swell in trees, but hear night traffic passing by instead. I measure out my days in what they cost, calculate each precaution I should take to ride out this storm that could leave us lost, assuring safety for my family's sake. But nurtured by the sweetness of my friends, attempt to live each moment as it comes, move through the day until I choose its end. Remember that some walk, some dance, some run. I haven't danced these 40 days gone still, but hold the hope that very soon I will. So now we come to the time. I feel like we should have a drum roll, really. Daljit Nagra, I feel like you're a sort of an honorary citizen of Derby somehow, because all of the Derby poets are always very thrilled when we say, oh yeah, we'll get Daljit to the Derby Poetry Festival. So thank you so much for coming this evening. It's fantastic. So Daljit, for those of you who don't know, he's a Forward Poetry Prize winner twice over. He was the first resident poet at Radio 4, and I do remember that moment and thinking, oh my God, they've got a proper poet on Radio 4. Whoop, whoop. You're a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, which sounds incredibly grand. You've been awarded a Royal Society of Authors Travelling Scholarship, and you're on the national curriculum. I mean, what more could you ask for? And then I am also told you're a pretty decent bloke by everyone who has worked with you and has had anything to do with you. So without further ado, welcome to Daljit Nagra on National Poetry Day.
Thank you very much, Anne. I hope my voice is coming through all right. It's a great pleasure to be here and lovely to connect with you all again. Just sad, isn't it? We can't be together in person in one of those lovely rooms in Derby, especially a library space that we've occupied together before. And great to hear the readings from Sunita, Cal and Michelle. So well done, thank you. And from Trevor and yourself, Anne. So it's great to hear that. So I thought what I might do was just to read a section of a very new piece I'm writing. It's a long collection. It's basically, so I've been working on it since really lockdown, over the lockdown period. 15 minutes of that, if that sounds all right. I'll read a section. I might sound quite tinny. When I do my Radio 4 programmes, actually, Poetry Extra, I've been doing them in the loft, and I've been sort of trained up by the BBC people because we don't go into the BBC studio still. And I have to go into a very small space. I normally have a duvet over me and loads of cushions everywhere, so the room is as soft as possible. So I normally actually have the duvet sitting on my head and coming slightly over me, and then I'm reading my script and recording it into the iPhone. That's all you need, apparently. It's incredible, isn't it? The iPhone is actually good enough, and I just then email that recording to the my producers, who then sort of tidy it up a little bit. So it's great, isn't it? That technology, the iPhone is good enough for Radio 4 recording. So there's quite a few people actually, Radio 4 and 4 Extra, are quite keen not actually to go back into the office. They're quite happy being at home. So it'd be interesting to see what happens even with the BBC, whether they scale right back and shrink the office space and allow people to work from home. So it's all kind of interesting, unusual times, aren't they? So I guess I should also mention actually, yesterday I taught for the first time at university. So I teach at Brunel University Creative Writing to my first year class. And then the student rep, I pick a rep each year, and it's all done via Zoom. At the end of the session that day, one of the students, he said, I'm the class rep, as you'll remember. I'm just emailing to let you know, we all think you're a zombie. And then he sent me a link to, I didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, then he's very playful. He sent me a link to the Wikipedia page. And apparently on there, and I saw it, it said I died in 1966 on my Wikipedia page. How brilliant. So I had to reassure them all, I am actually physically still here, and yourselves. So, and I haven't bothered contacting Wikipedia to let them know I'm alive, because it's quite funny, isn't it, to be dead in 1966 and still be here. So I'm really pleased with that. Okay, so I'll read this section. So the book's going to be called Indium, like Indiom. And it's really about, I'm trying to separate out the Indian Englishes. So some of you may have heard of Babus, the Babu class, the Babu English. So 1820s in India, the English wanted the Indians to be administrators, okay, to run the empire. And so the people they sort of trained up were these highly super bright, educated Indians who knew their Milton, Shakespeare, big chunks off by heart, knew their Roman poets. But one drawback was they didn't speak English very often. Okay, so they wrote it. So when they did write it and speak it, so they weren't. It wasn't a really living language as such. So they'd be using, contemporary language, the 1820s English, alongside Chaucerian English, whatever. They sort of mixed it all up, and you can often hear that English, can't you? That slightly florid, colourful, Latinate, overblown English. So in my poem, I'm going to explore Babu English. What can it live? Can it survive now? Is it a way of imagining the world? And I guess contrasted with that would be Coolie English. Coolie is the servant class English, and that would be the uneducated English I would have picked up. And in the book along the way, I have somebody, Bangra man, who speaks for Punglish and says why Punglish is an important language. Okay, so and the starting point for the poem really is a poem by Nissim Ezekiel. Some of you may have heard of him. He's a British Indian poet, and he wrote a poem in the 1970s in a kind of Babu English, and it really offended people. The Indians didn't like to have their voice reflected back to them. So, sorry, I might actually share the poem with you. Oh no, I can't share it. I'm disabled. I could have sort of shown it on the screen. Never mind. I'll read it. So it's a poem that thinks it's a film. Okay, so you'll have to go along with this. It's a bit weird, and it's going to go on for about 60 pages. So I'll start off with, so the first lines are going to be, director, centre stage, says to camera operator, pulley the curtain astride, this talkie is operative. Poetry committee is ultimately being seated. I should actually explain also that in the poem, the poem's written by Mr. Nissim Ezekiel to Miss Pushpa T.S. and I imagine Miss Pushpa T.S. is offended by the poem, and the whole dialogue is going to be about how we can win Miss Pushpa back by encouraging her to accept Babu as a viable English. So camera operator to the director, our shots are hot on dashing Mr. Vishnudas Desani. Staring out he is from this village of Jarsovi, with imperial moustache on yellow worsted blazer. Lo, our mensch, our swami, his timbre savoir as ghee. Director add, focus on his teeth, they are seaside bright. Despiting air in India is interjected with grit. Camera operator, how he fondle-dandle words from poem by Nissim. Director, he seldom mumble to self. Occasion is feeling solemn. Barbare, a dying is there? Are we gathered for sermon? Then Mr. Vishnudas Desani mumbles the two sections of the poem. From Goodbye Party for Miss Pushpa T.S. by Nissim Ezekiel. Friends, our dear sister is departing for foreign in 2-3 days, and we are meeting today to wish her bon voyage. Whenever I asked her to do something, she was saying, just now only I will do it. That is showing good spirit. I am always appreciating the good spirit. Mr. Vishnudas Desani lowers the book, checks the poetry committee. They are always in goofy mirth. Mr. Vishnudas Desani waxes, puffs to orate. Hail all committee, muses, etc. Council must pontificate on the oracle rearing a conflict. To verse in pure English, in true speech, or an idiom. Let us bear our judgment of nabobs from these myriad flaws. No Arthurian table this month. Our multitude seating is theatre-like. I feel dunked in a pit while you seem balconied, boxed. I say we are helicopterized, swaying in a wooded sector of dimensions. These 5 dimensions, whose view is Everest to ant perspective in the same gamut of a look-around. I say, O peak of Ind, winking nether at the docked Chandrayaan rocket that slaked the slaked the lunar waters. O Vale, do your orphaned cottages weep panegyrics to their siblings in Wessex, Ambleside? Yonder, what pokes through those groves? A Victorian bookstore with folios hot off and pressed by Vuong, Cunyal, also Diaz, heaped richer than the shelves at Hay. Hail, our destinies are fissured. Mine soul follows Nissim, mine nut flows aft H. McNish. Director whispered to camera operator, are his fixed syllables in a bifurcated rhyme, middle rhyme bent above below at the same time for an AABB tercet chime? Camera operator, I only hear triple rhyme. He is famed, our great vowel shifter, our vowel bybender. Cameras return to Mr. Vishnudas Desani, who has been vaping up a brain of steam. Whole parishioners, well zoomed. Some of us rose from over the hill, others propelled from motherland, our poor mother, an EU widow in whites. So we arrive here unmoored, aghast to discover a tuk-tuk will by and by park outside to collect Nissim. He will fly for Miss Pushpa. She is not amused, our parent of poetic letter, in 1970s au revoired her with Babu. Oh, Babu, our wedding cake of Englishes, our juggernaut of marzipan, by which legions of us across the castes conduct our conduct, have done so since the time the Raj made Romeo with our wallet. Do we but mimic Her Majesty, or do we potpourri? We have been comic buffoons, from Orwell to Seth, from Rushdie to Qureshi, from Carry On Team to, yes, Mrs. Starge, I am off-piste. Pardon me, I have jumped from the horse of galloping grist, alighting loose-legged the escalating horse of digress. Yet our hurdling want is we brainstorm unpickled advice for Mr. Nissim. Should he, nay, and not apologise, or play saddle for Miss Pushpa, so Babu is platformed? If we lock our wrestling limbs on dialectics, acorns of Welton Shong will trigger this very day learned oaks from Nissim in Miss Pushpa T.S. Then watch her invest plantations of thanking. Before we adventure advice, is Nissim at council, here to fly on board our mind eyes? He may be smiling at us from heaven, our bizarre game of time. In future or past, whom are we? All I can glean, he may be smiling at us from heaven, our bizarre game. Director to camera operator, in Easter 2020 we are, having assembled, if I correctly discern, giving counsel to R.I.P. poet toward his R.I.P. stimulus. Camera operator has hands clasped. God bless Mr. Vishnudas Desani. This prove how timeless he's. Mr. Vishnudas Desani has been in quantum flow, some of which is annoyingly missed by director operator Tufro. All I can say, our national tree have limbs bountiful, willy-nilly blooming fetus, who are wide-moored, reared tall in coolie or babu, does English breed, by our windfall. Director to camera operator, this committee rising in whoop-along is doolally. Camera operator, they know Mr. Vishnudas Desani is top carrot babu, his own last rum laugh. Who dare mock the panjandrum that mock itself? Even the cameras jiggle. The camera team make giggle at Mr. Vishnudas Desani's cunning and pun. He's our wondrously bungled rug from Isfahan. Director, enough said, dear chap. Mr. Vishnudas Desani must presently, surely, complete the exegetical element. Claps for my jollity kitty. I'm meagred. Miss Targe, I apologise, but if I may add, please, look out past these our imagined Clee Hills to spy our Shropshire lads posted in their graves. Even there, English must reinvent itself into Indic chit-chat. I can no more compos mentis far off Bordeaux bubble than I pump my ear on the meaty coolie of a Telugu hawker. Each bric-a-brac English is a devolving mulligatawny that harks to its milieu music. Outside, the melon waft of bark. All hail Muse! I have unpicnicked the gingham of the grass. Mr. Ezekiel's poem is a global interlard, or is it lard? If we drop bubble, must we all be laid breathless in standard English? Then bear bubble in secret on the spine down to pandemonium, to strive to seek the quintessence, the golden chain of Homer, so we speak for sheer bananas. Dear committee, I am a bad egg who hatches heart, favouring bubble. Only this I beg, as we go round the table, let us not at all digress. Indeed, you laugh, dear parishioners. I join your laugh out. Acquiescing, digression, where's my Achillean footfault? I will toss my denouement ball, may it excel the net. To say, let us venture around to hear each seated thumbs up waiver apology Mr. Ezekiel can take on Jumbo Plane for winning Miss Pushpati S, as I say. So that's this long section rambling from Mr. Vishnudas Dasanni. Then in a sense we go around the table here from people who either are pro-Babu or against it, pro-Cooley or against it, and sort of question sort of nature of Englishes. I'm going to move it on. I'll read a few little set pieces. So it's partly about the poets speaking from around the committee, and obviously the camera and director, as you've heard, they have a part, and various other people come into it. So I'll read this little section from director whispers to camera operator. Will audience appreciate the Indian head lol? It have a complex lexicon. I say, operator, install a dumb show of your head, bereft it of thought, then let it sidle idly side to side, lolling on the spot. Camera operator, I am lolling. Hard it is, with no connectivity of thought, to keep head fulsomely lol-rolled. I feel slogged. Director, entrapmented you I have. By lolling without real purpose, you have mocked the lol. You've been a white face. Camera operator, stop lolling. He say, is a Hermetic language this art of head lol? Who could, if not pertaining to Indian clime, acclimatise to all 420 precision head lol, which might indicate, director interrupts operator, he is superior, no? Which might indicate anything from the mildly left tilted head roll for see you in Bristol, nigh Ram Roy statue, to the abrupt head lift executed so fine, imperceptibly indiscernible it is, and indicate, is he the dude anti-Sati, anti-widows on fire? Then moving on, Mr. Vishnudas seems he's walking on a wall. Each space between tables seem lane straight ahead, yet maze-like, while he's walking in and out, down or up the path to make his appeal. Parishioners, thirsty for punch? For an English drink's name after punch, 5, for its 5 ingredients. Everyone raise 5 backward fingers and crack complimentary laughter. Punch is served, as deserved. Committee is everywhere hug each other across lower floor with all those almost above their heads, sipping. Ah, Angostura. Platters of eatables are equally featured. Varapad burgers, mogo chips mounded amid a spread of wilted cucumber to lettuce. Each hand must raise over for the tanginess of tan sustenance. While drinking one too many at speed and gulping a garlic clove for blood beneficiality, some committee members overhear Mr. Vishnudas Desani. If Babu must be melancholy, let it gust with satire. If Babu must survive, let it shake like umbrella after downpour. This tragic joy where end is ahimsa, satyagraha. Back to committee, everyone seated so Mr. Bikwas can speak. Is he stocious? His dance when he sing is uproarious. Newness is crudeness heard barge. Gata bata bak bak garbar. Jeeb jalebi bolli baji kaj. Atta butter gata geet. Bolli kaj heard barge butter. Newness bak bak jalebi jeeb. Geet kaj bolli baj garbar. Gata butter bak bak kaj. Gata butter bak bak barge. Mr. Vishnudas Desani laughing calls out, You truly have lost your bonds, Mr. Bikwas, with your shiver arms in a kathak dance. Okay, I'm going to move it on. This is halfway through because I started the poem during the lockdown and have basically finished the whole book. I'm just rewriting big chunks of it. So this sort of thing happens midway through, about kind of lockdown in a sense. So director says, No one is discerning, sailing we are into false colours, as it were, by which I declare we have stayed and will stay at this committee meeting for weeks indoors. There is a universal shut up, which is comprehensive, is same shut up over planet. In our case, it means our whole building has been covered in yellow tape for a long time now. No leaving out has been a single ant, no leaving in a beetle. We are bound like an intrepid silken ribbon round a gift box, except we have black-yellow cordon all over us, over the building, intricate as Birmingham's Spaghetti Junction. Who knows the way of yellow tape? Notwithstanding to say, even a light bulb on the Victorian street lamp that has lost its cover has by one gloop of tape glue stayed glued on. What is more, we must all be shielded in the shut-up because of our subterranean underlying condition, Indian. The camera operator say to director, What matter of condition? If our Indians be sharp, mortal time will gleefully pass. Director cheer at the positivity. More than Indians, my glass is half fulsome, and it surmise, since the shut-up, a bottleneck of brides will be deferred from forced marriages. 50 beatings fewer at least in their blot and lot of life. Camera moves in slow motion as camera operator and director tally on a nervous smile each. Tally's a high five. Okay, so I'll carry on. I'll read two more sections. So I imagine it's like Isha type drawing type room, and they've been in there for months by the look of it. But they're quite happy because they're just reciting poems and talking to each other. I've got a little section, and I'm still working on it, where if any of you have been to India or seen, in those road signs they have to encourage you not to go fast. And they're quite sort of funny, cheeky little road signs. Instead of, go slow, they have sort of funny. So I made 3 of my own up, inspired by some of them. So first one is, come quick, baby, but not so quick. So they're always in that sort of style. I don't know if you've seen them all over India, they've got in the States. So they're often quite saucy like that. So come quick, baby, but not so quick, as in slow down. So inverted commas, safety, as in TEA, safety at home, better than taste tea for crows. So it's bad puns on safety and tasty. Sorry. So safety at home, better than tasty for crows. It's not going to take off, that one, is it? And my last one is split with speed, not with misses. That works, doesn't it, surely? Split with speed, not with misses. I need to think of more. If any of you think of any more, let me steal them and I can credit you in the book. Okay, and then I'll read this section. So there's a couple of people who come into the room. I imagine the door is in the ceiling and everyone sort of, by walking ahead, they seem to walk upwards. So there's a kind of a girl from Newcastle who's going to be quite critical of this whole thing. So director says about the, anyway, look, up, gawp your lens, there, that door handle. It is opening for a damsel in Newcastle football camise. Entering room she is, despiting the split floors, she seem a magician's helper who has been sawed and seem halved in two cut boxes, two spaces at once. Camera operator, she speak with a pure Geordie, for which we have tucked good silver in the palm of a translator to remove her strange communion, which to us sound mucka waka. Geordie damsel dawdles up and down the room, then speaks. You know Monsters Inc? They've doors what steer you open into another room. So I swung me door like outward against itself and had away, I'm here to say, when you do these voices, I have to pick up the pieces. Everyone at school, they'll take the rip. Don't get me wrong, me worry, I'm loving your flick. Though I'm at home with me northern sisterhood, poets like Sandeep Palmer, Tic-Tac-Toe Capildeo, that young'un, Nisha Ramaya, and Banu Kapil. I think the problem, might be in this multiculti diction you versify. Geordie teen faces this, that person. It's nae organic palate, is it, Mara? Is it, Hinny? Aye, pet. It's diasporic, like a virus. Your film is a bad experiment. When you speak, you're a binary, like in a coconutism. A reference there to Sunita, my coconut. In that, your inside white comes read out and you're obedient like peer end impersonating comedians. Or, nee, I'm wrong. Away, man. If I gets it read off, I can see you're thinking me a worky ticket, like a fraud. What if I tag that fella from, is it Paisley, Michael Foucault, who wrote about heterotropia? Well, your coolie babus are cool, because the migrant makes language new through the tools of the flesh, which make the host jabber get fresh heft. With that in mind, give their bodies more jump, less text. Or, nee, I'm wrong, away man, just carry on as you were, glamping stop to text. Committee stand and move to the girl. She can't stop talking. In Dostoevsky's The Double, the protagonist is wanting to be noticed at a party, but is ushered out. The committee, like all Indians, love Dostoevsky. Albeit lovingly, they hug the Geordie lass. A group hug lasts a considerable while above and below. Our Geordie lass is moved to tears, then turns the brass back to her bedroom. Miss Di Pitter is still as a kebab spit, while revolving in a Welsh accent a juicy riposte. Oh, hotty botty and juju, as I twaddle the nipples of my cardigan. So is there a swampus portal that will slip me back? I got a part in a radio play in Lassie Wood. There was no need to Lufthansa here. That Geordie full-time with Monsters Inc. style door. We have the levers, the art and matriculation of this ink that will dissever any coop of doors. Pick up your pens. Let's compose poems. Poems that will work spell-like to take us home in a pop-de-ping when home time come. On the screen is shown in bold letters, INK, not INC. Silence. Each poem has been composed. Everyone looks somewhat older. How long have they been frozen this way? A poetry activity should last 20 minutes, not 20 leagues. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much for listening. I don't know what you made of that. So it's my first time I've read that. And it's good for me to practice that, and because I felt comfortable with this audience, Anne. So thank you very much for listening.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Midsummer Night's Dream and the band of Rude Mechanicals, because I don't know if anyone else is there, but it was like, it took me a while to get into, to stop trying to understand and just feel what you were saying. And my question is, do you see it as a book for people to read, or is it a performance?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. What the hell is it? I saw it as a film. So when I started, you have that kind of the big bang explosion with a poem. We all get those, especially with good ones where you feel it's coming together. When it first came out, the vision of it came out as a film. And I want to write it as a poem. So I thought what I'll do is I'll put loads of rhyme in, over-rhyme it, so it looks like a poem on the page. And I've got various shapes and things going on. But as I was writing it, I imagined it still as a film. And I think I thought of it as a sort of multi-dimensional thing, because Babu itself, Babu language, it uses old-fashioned words, contemporary words. It just mixes in the most a strange way imaginable. If you want kind of clean English, it's as far as possible from that. And if you want unmixed metaphors, if you want clean metaphors, Babu doesn't care about clean metaphors. So I was trying to have really mixed up, jumbled, bad metaphors wherever possible throughout the book as well, just to kind of liberate the imagination, I think.
Ruth has actually said in the chat, oh, they're all chatting away and I'm losing what Ruth said. Ruth said something wonderful. She said it's a bit under Milkwood and Jabberwocky. So now my head is like, under Milkwood done in the style of Jabberwocky, but I know what you mean. Ron has said, I love Juggernaut of Marzipan. My favourite, and I'm going to use it, is you've mocked the lol. I'm going to hurl that at people now and say, hey, you've mocked the lol. Ruth said she's going to pick this book as her Desert Island Disc book. Might take time to read it and follow all the references and educate myself. Trevor, shielded in the shut up. There's a sense there as well. I wonder, do you think you'd have written this had it not been for the lockdown?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually, because it started right at the early days of it. Maybe a few days before, when we were all aware that places in Europe were, closing up, and it was coming to us, and we were aware, why aren't we shutting down yet? That kind of thing. So I think it came around that sort of ideas coalesced. And I would say with this kind of poem, I'm trying to simplify it as I've overwritten it deliberately. But I think the good thing about Babu is it doesn't matter if you don't follow things. You're supposed to I want you to follow the music, the spirit of Babu. And really just enjoy the absurdity of one word sitting alongside another, that kind of relationship with odd language. And just to generally get the idea of what's going on. When I've used Indian words in the poem, Hindi, Punjabi, whatever, I've got little kind of footnotes on the side. So I imagine they're almost like subtitles that come up on the screen. So that will make it easier, I think. But yeah, I have to see how easy it is to perform. I think I'll need to know how to, I'm sure you all have this problem, is learning how to read your own poem. So it communicates as best as possible. And I think I probably need, with this at the start, probably talked about it sort of having this Isha dimension for the room and explain the setting a bit, because it needs quite a few explanations first, and that it's bouncing off this Nissim Ezekiel poem. I tend to practice a lot how to read a poem, so I'm still in early days with it. But once it's finished, I'll probably walk around the room, probably like you. Hopefully, you will do that, where you're working out the best pronunciation, best way to deliver little moments where the pauses should be, so it becomes sort of really natural to your brain. I mean, sometimes I have to really practice loads over and over and over again. So I'm getting the best interpretation for the listener. So it's about respecting the listener, isn't it? Making sure they're going to pick up what you're saying.
I have loads of questions I want to ask you. So I would say, if anyone else wants to ask a question, wave your hand or pop it in the chat, and I'll unmute you and you can ask Daljit. I was going to ask a little bit about your process. I know all poets get asked about their process, but it's fascinating. What was the process in writing that poem? That seems quite a brave poem to think, I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah, I think every poem I try and write is to see if I can get different intersections into the poem. So on the one level, it's about Nissim Ezekiel's poem. And then I started thinking, oh, why don't I write in Babu? Then I thought, well, I want more than that. So the natural corollary is that it's a Coolie language, the servant language. Then I thought I want something in between. So I thought I'll bring in Punglish, which I'm trying to imagine as being somewhere between oral and highly written. So if Babu's a highly raw language, highly written, and Coolie is the oral language, Punglish felt in the middle. So you're constantly putting new layers in. And then I started thinking, actually, this poem wants to be funny. So I'm going to do some research on the philosophy of humour. So I've read quite a lot of books about humour, you know, going back to kind of Plato, Aristotle, onwards, reading some of those writers for background thinking what humour is. Because in a time of this kind of universal shut up in the poem, how do you survive that? You need to have layers of wit and humour, good humour, as in be happy with each other, but also wit to keep your brain occupied and make it laugh in itself, entertain itself. So all those ideas sort of came in. Then I started using syllabics. I've been using syllable forms, Indian syllabics, quite a bit for a couple of years now. And I don't know if some of you find this, you have to find the right form. And until about a couple of years ago, I had no idea that syllables would interest me. And I suddenly found counting, weirdly, like an accountant. You know, we don't have any accountants in my family, so we're not very good Indian stereotype. We have no in banking, no accountant. We're terrible. So I quite enjoyed counting, actually. And I found that if I have 6 syllables, the Vishnu Das Dasani, he speaks in 14 syllables, 3-liners, that I've got this wall at start and end, and I'm sort of filling stuff up to hit the wall at the right speed and at the right time, and have a meaty word at the end before I go to the next line. And also by doing that, I was trying to find a way to liberate myself from the iambic, which is the natural speaking voice. And, you know, if you use too many iambs, I think you can just sound like a parody. You know, it sounds old fashioned. You know, it's like playing, you know, you think you invented something new, and you sound like Chuck Berry in 2020. You know, it's been done before, so you have to find a slightly different way. I think sometimes Don Patterson gets away with it, and he can do the iambic really well, because the stuff he writes is very modern, isn't it, sometimes, his consciousness. So his very sort of 21st century sensibility can pull off some of those iambic poems, but some of them do sound slightly slightly mechanical thing. So it's finding ways to liberate yourself from that voice. And I found for me, syllables really freed me up. And I seem to find more space through that confinement. But I think that probably takes time, doesn't it? Because it's all temperament. I have no confidence about these things. I always think I'm going to be rubbish at sort of, you know, those forms. And I don't know how some of you feel that. But it's probably practice. I practiced doing syllabic writing, and I suddenly found that it became really a liberating thing. So, yeah, try different forms.
I must say, that's what I think I was talking like a Dalek before when I did that little sonnet. I've embraced form. I was very resistant to it for years, saying, oh, it's not for me and it's going to stop me writing. And then because a group of us were working during lockdown, meeting weekly and looking at new forms, I found it liberating as well. So I'm like a born again form writer, preaching it from the hilltops, because I feel like you splurge out what you want to say, and then the form will sort of find you a structure that you can fit this into. So it's so lovely to see you excited about syllables and begone iambic pentameter, because I think a lot of the faces that I've seen here in this Zoom are people who work really hard at the craft of their poetry and are trying new things all the time. So yeah, go Daljit with your passion for syllables.
I tend to my second years in the poetry class, and in the first week I normally give them a list of 100 different forms. There's so much online, isn't there? And you know, like, so one of the Welsh speaker at the end, the Di Pitta woman, I'm just going to work on this Welsh form for her. So why, you know, she's speaking, she's using Welsh words, and she wants to go back to this lassie, that's my little joke at Milkwood. She wants to go back to there. But I'm going to put her into this Welsh form, Gwandodig, which I found online. Oh, it's really interesting. And it seems it's working for me, so I'm just doing that. And actually, you could all do that, couldn't you? So have that intersection, that conflict, or that engagement with a form. One of the things it does is it makes you sound clever, doesn't it? People think, oh, you must be so clever because you use the form. And I think the other thing also, it gives you a relationship with the history of that form, doesn't it? Like, and you mentioned sonnet. Suddenly the reader is thinking, at some part of their brain has been set off about the history of the sonnet if they see a sonnet by someone. So already they've got this extra layer of engagement with that form. And of course, not everything needs to be in form. Some just need to be free verse and let rip. But sometimes you can shape things. And what I find is, I'm sure you mostly find that, is it is good for editing, isn't it? Cutting back, using some forms. And then you can sometimes liberate the poem after, free it up afterwards, maybe start with form.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually one of my questions. I'm glad you mentioned teaching. Again, lots of the places I see, they teach, they facilitate. I know I work in an alternative provision with sort of discarded kids. I know Michelle's done work in alternative provisions as well. My question that I got on my list was, how important is teaching to your own development as a poet?
Yeah, oh, it's massive. And I didn't realise how important it was, because I've only been teaching at university for 4 years, and I used to work in a secondary school where I didn't really teach much poetry, and I was working as a mentor partly, running kind of mentoring department and teaching a bit of English. And since I've been teaching creative writing and sort of running the poetry there, I'm reading much more poetry that's coming out all the time to show students. And when I teach, I try and show them stuff that's coming out now to really excite them. You know, when you were younger, you used to buy the latest album or a single. I try and kind of nurture that kind of excitement. Oh, this book just came out, you know, and it's fantastic. Here's some poems from it, to create that kind of excitement. So I think that has really generated a kind of enthusiasm for writing. So I don't think I would have written this poem if it hadn't been for teaching at a university, or because I've suddenly found I've sort of found really liberated ways of writing a poem that doesn't really feel like a poem, but feels very much like a poem. So yeah, teaching I think is really good. And also when you work with students, you know, one of the things is you tell them don't do this or don't do that, or you could have done this in your poem, and then you're hearing yourself thinking, I'm a hypocrite. I've done that. I do that. So I need to be a better writer. And you read some amazing stuff by students. You think, well, I need to up my game, or I should stop writing because, you know, I've had my time. So it's really important, isn't it, to make you work harder in your own work.
I'm really conscious that I've been asking all the questions. Is there anyone else, if I scroll across my lovely ribbon of people, is there anyone who has anything they'd like to ask Daljit at all? I mean, I'm happy to chat away, but
I think Deborah's there. Deborah's got a question.
Deborah,
or
let me
comment.
unmute you.
It doesn't have to be a question. It could be a comment.
Yes.
Hi. I really enjoyed that, and I was fascinated because I write poetry a lot using different characters, and I loved your cast of characters, and I just wondered, was there one voice that took over more than others, or did they all get their own time, do you think?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Deborah. I think the Mr. Vishnudas Desani, he can't stop talking. He's that type of Indian who loves the sound of his voice. You know, uses that big diction that he's got. So he really took over. And then I found that the director and the camera operator, as it were, they took over as well. And then near the end, they complement each other's moustaches, which seems really important to them. And those characters seem to have moustaches. I don't know how that happened, but I like the idea of the Indian moustache. Quite a few of my relatives got moustaches, so. That's part of the magic, isn't it, Deborah? Have you had that where your suddenly characters take over? You think,
yeah, I wrote several books of short stories, and there was an elderly lady that was going to be a minor character, and she took over most of the 3 books in the end, and became kind of the central pivot of all the stories. So yeah, that definitely happens, and in poetry too.
Yeah, I like creating characters in poetry, just that short space. I think that's probably inspired by Browning, obviously. He's the great dramatic monologue man. I love those sort of characters he creates. I love that sort of feeling almost that, you get a section of a Shakespeare play almost. They're so rich, aren't they, the plays, that if you could create a little section your own self where you've got a character talking and they're relating to other people, that you might have this kind of added richness. That's really exciting, this fleeting moment. Obviously, this book I'm working on has got loads of references back to the same characters, more like a novel in a sense. But character voices I find really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
So another thing that strikes me about a lot of your work is it's very personal. You do seem to put the personal in there. And yet this book doesn't seem to be on the surface that personal. But are you still in there?
That's a good question. I think it just probably feels like more of a novel or a film or something where it's got its character arc, sort of. I am in there, in that I am obsessed with how language can invigorate us, how language in itself can be a source of pleasure, a constant source of pleasure. And because we are mucking around with language in our heads, so how do we articulate thoughts about that, play about that we do in our heads into a poem on page? So that's been my obsession project right from the first book. And I think in my first book I did voices, but I hadn't separated them out into kind of coolie voice and a babu voice or a Punglish voice. And in this book, I thought I was going to just separate them out and have thoughts. And the idea being that then anyone who reads the book would think, well, I've got my own language. And they'd want to go away and think about their own language. So give them license. In Derby, I'm sure you have your own language. And even different sections of Derby, I'm sure the language shifts a bit. And that's partly about accent, isn't it? And partly about syntax, the way you probably just reorder words a little bit. And then obviously the dialect. Ruth's got her hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
I'm wondering, Daljit, are you going to have a dramatis personae at the beginning or end for us?
I haven't really. So I thought in that slightly deflated way where you have the director starting, which is the worst kind of ending, rather than a big dramatic ending. But yeah, I might. Yeah, I could do. I'm still working on my kind of list of characters, I guess. So I may well do that, or I might just. I'm still thinking, I may just do that kind of where you just start with the director and there's nothing else, and you have to kind of.
I'm just thinking back to my very young youth when, if we were being taken off to see a Shakespeare play, my mother would drag out the Lamb's Tales from Shakespeare, so we knew what was going on before we got there to give us a clue. And I have a bit of a feeling I might need it to get myself from beginning to end, or an opera, the same sort of thing. The mere mortals need to have a clue at the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, actually. I might have to do that. What I've got at the moment is the title Indian, and then I've got a very long alternative title that wasn't used, which just sort of says, Miss Nissim Ezekiel wrote a poem that offended Miss Pushpa, and I do it in a kind of Babu English, and that the poem's about this in very silly English. But yeah, that might be an idea. I'm sure my editor might say that. Write little paragraphs, just explain it. And also, beyond the long title, I've just got a little 4 lines just saying that Babu English, began in the 1820s during the Raj, and that Kudi language is the language of the labouring class. I've got little things like that. But yeah, maybe that might be better, just a little explanation. But then once you get into the poem, it doesn't really change. There's different voices talking, camera operator talks, the director talks, and the other characters come in, and various random things happen, which are sort of explained. Maybe I need to do that. Actually, it's a good idea.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I felt like when I'd found some kind of context, interesting. I'm thinking Midsummer Night's Dream. I was also thinking about those restorations, those mad restoration comedies, and then I can't remember who it was in the chat was saying about Jabberwocky and Under Milkwood. Once I'd given my brain had context, I found I could make more sense of it. And then when I did that, I thought, why do you need to find sense immediately? Why don't you let it just wash over you? and then I did. So
yeah, I'll probably need to set it up better. So that will help, wouldn't it? And yeah, I think that sort of Jabberwocky, under Milkwood. So there's few references to Wales in the book because I really like Dylan Thomas. He's wonderful, and to me, he's a kind of babu poet. He does mix up language, doesn't he, in the most idiotic way, which is wonderful, isn't it? And Hopkins obviously does the same as well. So they feel kind of relevant, that type of author. So in a sense, I guess if you think of someone like Edward Thomas as the central note of English literature, of English poetry, where it's that natural spoken voice of English language. This is probably as far away as you get from that, in the way that Dylan Thomas can be with some of his poems, or Hopkins, or the Jabberwocky.
Yeah. Another question I was going to ask, when I've looked at your sort of trajectory through the poetry world, how important do you think it was to write for journals, to apply for journals and magazines and apply for competitions?
Yeah, I think it's massively important. I didn't really do competitions. I don't think I had the confidence, but also I just want to enter in magazines, poetry magazines, which I found really helpful because I got very early on. I got some poems published in Rialto, and they were really supportive. And Poetry London published a poem, and that was basically my first proper poetry reading was for Poetry London. They invited me to read with a couple other poets, and they really sort of championed my work. So I think getting published in magazines is really good because they're always looking for new poets or different voices. So the magazine becomes your advocate. So I think that was really good for me. I did a reading for Poetry London whenever that was, early 2000, I think. And then I got invited to do another reading on the back of that. And that sort of things happen that way. So I think publishing magazines is a really, really good idea. And I still read those. I mean, I still read Poetry Review, Poetry London, The North, and various other magazines. I subscribe to some and then just pick up some. And I'm sure some of you do that as well. So it's been part of that conversation. The conversation is you publish, you read, and you engage with it. So I really enjoy the magazine culture, I think, of poetry. And
do you have confidence now? I mean, again, looking at the trajectory, it was like you submitted for journals and magazines, and then you won the Forward Prize for Best Poem, and then it was the collection.
Book, yeah.
So have you reached a point now where you're like, yeah, I'm a poet?
That's a good question. Interesting one, isn't it? Because I think prizes are kind of good for your ego, for your vanity. I don't think they mean anything. I think they're really overrated. And actually, all that matters is the work and your relationship to the work. You enjoy having a good time writing. I think after that, it's just a bit of luck. There's loads of good people out there writing. And it all depends on, I mean, I've judged loads of prizes now where it's a committee decision. Quite often my favourite book hasn't won, probably most of the time, because it ends up being a committee decision. And often you pick the book, everyone's second favourite or third favourite or whatever. And that's the reality of it. So it doesn't mean you're a good poet if you've won a prize. And if you haven't won a prize, it doesn't mean you're a bad poet. And it's really hard to get our heads around that because we do live in a kind of capitalist consumerist society where things are constantly being graded. And that is really bad. And I think it happens all the time, doesn't it, in literature? We're told about prizes, the importance of them. Actually, I think just good to get published in magazines, get a book out, and read it out in events, if you can. I think that's a really good, healthy way of living, isn't it? Exchanging between people.
Oh, absolutely. I'm an absolute advocate of doing it yourself, getting it out there. It's great to have had poets on here tonight who are brandishing their books. It's what Big White Shed does, get poets to get their books out by hook or by crook. But I think it's interesting to hear you talk about confidence, because I guess we presume when you've reached your level, it's like you would be full of confidence. And I wonder also if that's given you permission almost to write what you damn well please, because I think that's the key often, is sometimes where we write what we think people want to hear.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I've tried to just stay the way I was my very first poem I wrote, that it's a hobby. because initially I didn't expect to get published. I wasn't trying to get published. I just wrote for fun, and I've tried to keep as close to that, where I'll write whatever I want. I don't care, because that's the only way of me being happy with writing. And if somebody likes it, great. If they don't, that's fine as well. So I think it's really important, isn't it? You are free in your imagination. I'm not even sure if that's linked to confidence. It's just accepting failure, that it probably won't work. So what? So I'll write what the hell I want. And if I write in the accepted style, what if I don't make it then? So it's that kind of maybe that bullish confidence of I don't care if I fail. I don't mind. Yeah.
So be true to you all the way through.
Yeah, you have to take that risk, I think. It's a really important risk to take, isn't it?
Do you have another poem up your sleeve that you can throw at us?
Should I just read a very short piece, maybe, just to
cleanse our palate?
I'll read it from my sort of latest collection, just to kind of. It was the whole book was really about Britishness, soft power of Britain, and then I've got this sort of list poem near the start. So I'll just read that. I've probably read that before, but it's just a list poem about Britishness. I want to use this as a warm up to get me thinking about what Britishness is or isn't. Yeah, so I call it Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That, the voice of people is the voice of God. Who are we at root? To know this is to know our range, the cast of characters we banked. Weren't we once a plucky bunch in battle, led by Drake and Nelson? Wherever we died, turned Britain forever. An amphibious tribe who fished. However far we ventured, our rivers coursed within us to chant our poetic names. Roll on, sweet Avon, sweet Ouse. The apple fell on Newton, so we walked tall. Stay tall for Brunel and Darwin. Who'd speak for our garden utopias? Not Clive of India, not Kitchener's finger, but John Barleycorn, the Green Man. Weren't we ruled by black emperors? Our first couple of Obama glamour, Septimius Severus and Julia. Who else to deepen us? Surely Julian of Norwich in her Albion of divine love. The Tolpuddle Martyrs. What heritage or broch or crop of skyline stone abounds us with murmurs of ancient wisdom? So much at root. What ramparts of fear have we built? Have we been severed from the world? Could we seek guidance from the Virgin Queen, the Lady of the Lamp? So we're bold as Boudicca, noble as Livingston and Bevan. So it was a very English voice, wasn't it, Anne?
Yes, very English voice.
Almost like a
I was there. Thank you so much. It's been a real privilege, and everything that everyone has said about you was absolutely true. It's been wonderful to see you alight with words. You were glowing from the inside, Daljit. You really were. It was fantastic. A massive thanks to Trevor Wright and Derby Poetry Festival. I think Dan Webber is lurking off camera somewhere as well. Also to Derby City Council Libraries for allowing us to host this. It's been wonderful. Trevor has asked me to mention that if you are pining for poetry, if you go to Derby Live, there is let me look, Derby Folk Festival Fringe, which is October the 2nd to the 4th. And if you go to derbylive.co.uk, you can book tickets there. There's loads of poetry events, well, many poetry events, and there's also free Fringe events on their Facebook group. Please do support poets. All of us write books. Some of them are in Waterstones, some of them are in indie bookshops like Five Leaves in Nottingham. Some of them just grab us when you see us. Daljit has got a fair few books out there. Nip into your local indie bookstore and order them. I've had a really, really lovely evening. It's great to see so many familiar faces. And thank you very much. Thanks, Daljit. I'll listen to you on the radio again.
Excellent host. Thank you very much. Thank you to Trevor for arranging everything.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Anne. Lovely to hear everyone reading earlier and see everyone there. So thank you.
And we will forever imagine you under a duvet now.
Yeah. Good way to end. Thank you.
It is a good way. Thank you all so much. Night night.